Hello, fifth graders. We're having some technical difficulties with the computer for some reason. Today it's being a little bit slower than usual. So we're going to do it on the good old dry erase board. We are on Lesson 86. Lesson 86's title is Multiplying Fractions and Whole Numbers. We're going to do that in two different ways. We'll use the specific fractions and we'll multiply it by whole numbers, and we'll also draw a picture to represent that. At the beginning of the lesson, it says we have found a fraction of a whole number by dividing the whole number by the denominator of the fraction. We've seen 1/3 of 9. Okay, and we know that we need to take 9 and divide it by 3. And we know that 1/3 of 9 is then 3 times 3 is 9. So 1/3 of 9 is 3. Well, remember I've also talked to you about replacing that word of with a multiplication sign. So if we had 1/3 of 2/3 and we switch this to multiplication sign, we'd get 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 3 is 9, and we'd understand that 1/3 of 2/3 is 2/9. Well, we can do the same thing with whole numbers. Instead of writing of, we can have 1/3 of 9 or 1/3 times 9. What we need to understand is that 9, if we want to write that whole number as a fraction, we put it over 1. Why does that make sense? Well, if you think about it in terms of breaking up a circle into the number in the denominator, we have 1 of 3 parts. It's broken up into 3 equal parts. One of those parts is shaded. Well, this circle is broken up into 1 part and the entire thing is shaded. We'd have to do that 9 times. That would represent 9 wholes. So we're not changing the value by putting it over 1. And now when we multiply straight across, because we replaced the times sign with of with the times sign, we take 1 times 9 is 9. We take 3 times 1 is 3. What we have now is exactly what we had earlier. We're dividing by the denominator. 9 over 3 is just 9 divided by 3. We know that 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, just like 1/3 of 9 told us to divide 9 by the denominator, eventually we got there. And now, you might ask why this is relevant. Well, you're not always going to have a 1 in the numerator. So basically what you're doing is if we had 2/3 of 9 and we put 9 over 1, we'd get 18 over 3. 18 divided by 3 would then be 6. We're potentially saving ourselves a step by multiplying the numerators and then dividing by the denominator. Okay, now I want to draw a picture to represent that. They use the example 1/3 of 6. 1/3 of 6. We know that we divide 6 by the denominator of 3. So 1/3 of 6, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Again, we could show that with a picture. 1 times 6 is 6. 3 times 1 is 1. 6 over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now let's draw a picture to represent that. Okay, let's say that this represents our 6. So I'll split it up into 6 parts. Okay, now what is 1/3 of that 6? Well, if we needed 1/3 of the 6, okay, we'd have 2 of those parts. 2 of those parts would represent 1/3 of them. 1 out of every third is shaded. Okay, this would be 1 out of these 3. This would be 1 out of these 3. 2 would be 1/3 of 6. Okay, moving a little bit lower, I guess most importantly, just remember that if you have a whole number, any whole number, if you put it over 1, you put it in a fraction form without changing the value. It's extremely important to put it over 1 and not any other number, because if you put it over 1, it doesn't change the value. The first example that we have, again, is found on the next page, 561. We have what number is 2/3 of 4? Okay, when you have 2/3 of 4, let's switch of to a multiplication sign, and we put 4 over 1. This is your answer for example number 1. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 1 is 3. You take 8, numerator, divided by 3, denominator. 3 goes into 8 twice. With a remainder of 2, our remainder goes over our denominator. Our answer for example number 1 is 2 2/3. Okay, we're going to do an example. Let's do 3/5 times 2. Or this is a practice problem. You will write this for example number 2. Okay, again, the problem is 3/5 times 2. When we multiply these fractions by whole numbers, we're going to change that whole number to a fraction by putting it over 1, and we'll multiply straight across. 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times 1 is 5. You have an improper fraction, so we need to divide numerator by denominator. 5 goes into 6 once, and we have a remainder of 1. We show that as a mixed number. Our answer for example number 2 is 1 1/5. Now, that was extremely short, and it's going to be relatively easy. Just remember, you can multiply fractions times whole numbers in 2 ways. They can write 1/3 times 4. They also may write 1/3 of 4, but essentially it's the same thing. You can switch of to multiplication. Make sure you put this over 1. For example number 4. For example number 4, let's do, what did we learn recently? Let's reduce this fraction. Let's reduce the fraction 6/9. Remembering that we find the greatest common factor of 6 and 9, and you can show your work on the back. The greatest common factor of 6 and 9 by first finding the factors of 6 and then finding the factors of 9. Okay? And I haven't finished this one yet. There's one more factor left. When you find those greatest common factors, you divide both the numerator and the denominator by a fraction equal to 1. Remembering that a fraction equal to 1 is just the same number in the numerator and denominator. Have a good night, and I guess I will see you tomorrow.